Okay, hi, and welcome to this Being a Childhood Sociology and Social Work Student webinar. This is a chance for you to hear from three of our lovely students who are going to be talking about their experiences so far at Chichester. And we're going to be going through some of the stages that they started with in terms of researching university, their first few weeks, and some of the advice that they might give you in your kind of run up to starting university. So I shall introduce myself. My name's Chris. I work for the Student Recruitment and Outreach team here at the University of Chichester. And this is one of the parts of my job that I love doing, talking to students and also sharing the experience of our lovely community with other people. So I will ask our students to introduce themselves and just give you a bit of information about their course and what year they're on. So Taryn, do you want to go first?
I'm Taryn. I'm a second year on early childhood studies.
Excellent, thank you. And Grace? You're on mute, Grace.
Hiya, I'm Grace. I'm a second year social work student.
And finally, Frankie.
Hi, my name is Frankie. I'm a second year sociology with criminology student.
Excellent, thank you very much. And so we're going to hear from these three lovely students about their experiences at Chichester as they've made their way through from applicant all the way to currently studying with us. So first things first, hopefully this stage is not new to those of you who are listening. You should have by all means done a lot of research already, but kind of three of the key things that we're going to hear from our students is about the steps that they took before joining university, how they felt about going to university, and also what their top tips are when deciding on universities. Frankie, I'll come to you first and I'll go with the first question. So what steps did you take before joining university?
I think one of the biggest things was one, what course I wanted to do, because I had no idea. I knew that I wanted to kind of go to university, but I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to study. So I think definitely looking into all the different types of like options that were available, things that kind of opened as many doors as possible, because I didn't want to do a course that like straight after I got a job in that one specific area. I wanted something that had a lot of like options after. And then also kind of looking at different universities in terms of like the size, whereabouts it was placed, whether it was like quite diverse or like things like that. So I took into consideration kind of not only the uni but like the course as well.
Excellent, thank you. Great. So I'll come to you next with the middle question. So how did you feel about going to university? What were your initial thoughts?
I think I was probably like excited but nervous. I think because especially for me, I grew up in the country, so moving away from like a little country village to Chichester was quite a big step. But I was also quite excited to kind of like branch out and kind of meet new people as well. But yeah, it's definitely a good choice by me to go to uni.
Excellent. And did you, sorry, supplementary question, did you have to come far when you say you were out in the countryside?
Not really. I'm from Wiltshire, so about an hour and a half away, but not like ridiculously far. Like I can get back quite quickly if I need to get back. But yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And finally, Taryn, so what would you say is your top tip when deciding universities?
I would say just look at what course you want to do and what is available to you, because I know a lot of people, when I was at college, everyone's looking at uni, were sort of going to ones their friends were going to and like wanting to stay with people they knew rather than going where they want to go. So the main thing I would say, because you're going to make friends whenever you go to uni, wherever you go. So focus on what university would suit you best and go there, because you'll make friends no matter where you go.
Excellent, thank you. Sound advice, that's very true. Talking to the students in schools all the time, you do get that, don't you, where students are looking at unis because they've heard the name or their friends have said the name. So it is ultimately about your choice and about you thinking that's where I see myself. So some of the other things that might come out of top tips, we would always say try and visit the university when you can. Obviously, we currently have offer holder days currently running at the moment. So do get down, do visit, do get in, do get a feel for those kind of lectures, those tutors, and also the academic staff that are going to be teaching you as well. You might want to test run your journey from university to home. Sounds like an odd one, but if you are a student who's going to be commuting, it will potentially help to alleviate some of the stresses of those first few days of university, knowing what the traffic will be like, knowing what time kind of the roads are quiet and bits and pieces like that, and ultimately visit the local area. Chichester is a university, and Chichester in the local area has a lot to offer, everything from kind of countryside to the beach, and also a nice city centre with all the sorts of amenities that you'd expect, and also equally some really good links to other local areas, including kind of Portsmouth, Brighton and London as well. And one of the biggest questions is, don't forget to ask questions, continually ask questions, ask students, ask staff, ask those around you, because we are ultimately here to help you and obviously make your transition to university as smooth as possible. So moving on to getting started. So this is obviously those first weeks, those first days, which for some of you might feel like quite a way ago. But if you can think back of those sorts of times, and what I'll do is I'll come to Grace this time first. So Grace, what was your first week at university like?
Making me think back now. I mean, when I first started, I kind of spent the first week, because I moved over to uni, so I kind of spent the first week with my flatmates and getting to know them. And actually my course started really early, so the first week I think I had a week where I wasn't at uni, and then I started uni straight away. So I think as well in the first week I joined a lot of societies, so I did that as well. But yeah, I can't remember loads of it because it was like 2 years ago now, but yeah, that's what I started off with.
That's cool, thank you. So you had a bit of a lead up time to get to know people rather than jumping straight into your lectures.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Excellent, that's cool. Taryn, coming to you, how did you find settling into student life?
It was kind of weird, like at first, because obviously it's very much you sort of are very in control of everything you do. It took obviously a couple of weeks to sort of get used to like the work, not the workload, but all of that, and like having longer lectures rather than like short lessons like you would at school. But I think obviously being in like student accommodation really helped, because you weren't on your own. You had people around you that were going through it as well, and like you were like working through it together and like meeting people. So it was very weird, but you got used to it after a while.
That's cool, thank you. And Frankie, final question. What does a typical week look like for you at the moment, and maybe from your first year as well?
So at the moment I'm quite busy. It's like in the midst of like assessments, so like halfway through semester 2. So there's a lot kind of going on, trying to like prep for the next few weeks. But I'm usually in lectures for about 12 hours a week. So I have 4 3-hour lectures basically for each module. So I'm in quite a bit, but I also work at the student union. So I work at the bar and I also work at the shop. So I'm on the campus quite a lot, almost every day. So but it's nice just like be out the house and kind of be kind of on campus as well. But I'm always kind of here in the evening as well doing some work, because I like to work in the evening as well, because I concentrate a lot better then. So it's busy, but compared to first year, I'd say I wasn't doing as much like work in first year. I kind of took that as an opportunity to kind of get to know everyone on my course, get to know all of the people around me, kind of start working a little bit. And then kind of second year, I focused more on like the actual work of it and trying to like bump those grades up basically.
Excellent, thank you. That sounds, yeah, getting yourself settled in, which is really good advice. Thank you. So I'll come to you guys first rather than read the ones out on the screen. But if I come to Taryn first, maybe what was your biggest concern before you came to university, do you think?
I know it says it on there, but I genuinely think it was like moving into halls, because I didn't do what everyone should have done, because a lot of people did. There was like Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups for your like accommodation and for your course, and I didn't join any of them. So I went in with like no knowledge of who I was going to live with or who was on my course. So I sort of went in completely blind, and that was really scary. But I know there was a few people, especially on my course, who had sort of started chatting to each other. So that was something I definitely should have done, which would have made that a lot easier.
There's some wise advice from someone who's learned the hard way, but that's cool. Thank you. Frankie, what would you say one of your biggest concerns was when joining university?
I think one of my biggest concerns was probably whether I was going to like the course or not, because obviously I hadn't studied sociology or criminology before. And when I got there, everyone had like either studied it or kind of knew quite a lot about it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to struggle. Maybe it's not the right choice. But they kind of literally started from scratch, kind of told you everything people would have learnt at GCSE A level. So that was kind of quite a relief, because I was like, oh, okay, cool, we're all kind of all in the same boat. And to be fair, I did equally as well as everyone else who had already studied it.
Excellent. So yeah, I think that's probably one that a lot of people will come with is, am I up to the right level for the course? But you quite often find, as you've just said, they start everyone at a similar pace to get everyone up to scratch and everyone up to that same level, which is really good. And Grace, coming over to you, what do you think your biggest concern was before you joined university?
I think it was probably just to do with maybe making friends and knowing people in my course. I mean, I was quite fortunate with my course and the fact that we like had a group chat before we even joined, so we kind of knew each other. But I think it was just maybe my concerns were just about moving away and how I'd cope being away from family and everything, and how I'd kind of like manage being by myself as opposed to obviously living with my family. But yeah, I'm kind of over it now. So.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, Grace. So yeah, some of those on the board, I think on the display are obviously things you guys have covered, but we obviously hear a lot of others. We hear from students when we're talking to them out in the community and bits, and we do hear things like exam stress, which hopefully on another slide we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Definitely that moving away from home, that settling into a new environment and making new friends, and also some stuff around, quite importantly, financial worries, which again we'll have a slide and we'll talk about some of the support that is around for those, that side of things as well. So moving on to the next slide then. So nicely linked, moving away from home, making friends, so things like living in student accommodation. I'm going to come to Frankie first this time. So Frankie, how did you feel about moving away from home?
I'm not gonna lie, I was very excited. Because when I was applying to uni, I was applying during COVID. So I'd spent like a year and a half kind of inside, and then almost the opportunity to go out and meet completely new people and almost start afresh. I was like really looking forward to. But to be fair, I'd never really been away from home that much. I went on one holiday kind of by myself with other people, but I'd never like moved away or spent time with like outside of my family home. So I was a bit nervous, but I think the excitement kind of overtook it.
Excellent, thank you. And a little bit of a supplementary one. Did you join any, or are you part of any societies or clubs?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm currently the president of the LGBTQ plus society. So like when I started, I met everyone that was was like me, and I was like, oh my God, this is great, because I came from a very small conservative town where there wasn't really any queer people. And then as soon as I got to uni, everyone was like out and proud, and I was like, oh my God, this is great, love it. So yeah, I tried, I joined that, I joined Hills, I did a little bit of cheer. So yeah, I kind of tried as many things as I could.
Excellent, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Taryn, I'll come to you next. So you briefly mentioned you lived in student accommodation in your first year. So what was that like?
Yeah, so I lived on campus as well, because that was like a big thing. I knew that I didn't want to have to do the walk every day, like one of the off-campus ones. I definitely wanted to be on campus. And I was catered as well, which took like a pressure off because I didn't have to worry about cooking. And it was really good. It made it really easy, and I started to like figure out, and I learnt the campus a lot quicker because I was on it. So I got very familiar with it like very quickly, which made me feel a lot less stressed about the whole situation, because I was like right in the middle. Like I didn't have to worry about being late or getting lost or anything like that. So it was very good.
Oh, excellent. And did you join any societies or clubs as well?
No, I didn't. I was going to join pole, and then I got too scared. I was like too scared to like join because I think like there was like the freshers fair with all the clubs and everything, and I think it just overwhelmed me and I got too scared to do any of it. So in the end I ended up not joining any, but I think I got really close with a lot of the people on my course. So I ended up not I was quite happy the fact that I hadn't, because I could spend more time with them, like out of
Excellent.
lessons.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. So yeah, sometimes societies and clubs, before I move on to Grace in a minute, it's not for everyone. It is something that is a choice, and sometimes people wonder if they have to do them, but it is, yeah, very much a choice. And as Frankie said as well, you can try some out and you can drop them, you can kind of go back to them and all sorts of things like that as well. So Grace, moving on to you, how did you feel about making new friends and meeting new people? What was that like at the start?
I was like a bit nervous about it, but I think I was kind of quite lucky with how I made my friends. So like my closest friend on my course, I literally met her at a like social once, and that's how we're friends. And my like kind of group of friends on my course, we literally met through being in the same accommodation block. So I was like really fortunate of how I made my group of friends. Yeah, I was originally nervous, but I think because I made friends on my course quite quickly, it was okay. And I think because I joined society as well, it meant that I had kind of different networks of friends. So because I'm doing social work, a lot of my kind of friends on my course commute. So it was a little bit harder to try and kind of see them outside of like uni, because like people would live in Worthing, people lived in Portsmouth. So it was quite hard to do that. So I think making friends through a society meant that I had kind of multiple networks of friends that I could see if maybe some weren't available, which was really lucky for me.
Oh, nice. And what society was it you joined?
Well, I joined American football, so I did that in first year, and then I became vice president in second year. I don't do it anymore because my course requires that you go on placement, so it's a bit busy to try and fit in a society and be on placement 4 days a week. So I don't do it anymore, but I'm still really good friends with everyone, and I go on when I can. But yeah.
Excellent, excellent. That's, yeah, that kind of touches sort of some of the other things about societies, as well as, I think, because Frankie said you can drop them, you can pick them up, you can trial them. There are some courses, like you say, where timetables do kind of sadly mean that as you get into your final years, it does mean you're a lot busier. So yeah, but like you say, you keep all those friendship groups and bits and pieces as well, which is really cool. So moving on to coping with assessments, as we said, quite often one of the things that people come out with, one of the things that does prove to be concerning for some people, but quite often when you start to talk to them, we are able to alleviate fears quite quickly, especially when talking about types of assessment, how often they are, and those sorts of things as well. Taryn, I'm going to come to you first. So can you give us a bit of an idea on what types of assessments you have in your subject area?
So yeah, on early childhood studies, very lucky. I don't have any exams, but there's a placement. I've just finished my final one. There's a placement in first year and second year, which you're assessed on, and also we have presentations and essays, rather than exams, which is good because I don't cope very well with exams. But yeah, no, we're mainly just like essay based.
Excellent, brilliant. Grace, how would you say that you prepare for your assessments, and do you have what sort of assessments do you have as well?
So my course kind of varies depending on what year you're in. So in first year it was like all assessments. So in first year we had 4 modules, and then we just did assignments for all of them, and they were just doing at different times. So what I did with those, I just made sure that I was prepared in advance, because they can take quite a while to try and do an assignment. And then second year we had a debate. We had to do a debate on something. We also had a law exam, but that's the only exam you do in social work, and it's like open book as well. So we just had to make a portfolio and bring it in, and we just answered it with that. And then when you're in second and third year, you go on your placement. So to qualify, you have to do like 200 days of practice or something like that. So for second year, we're basically on placement. We started in January and we finish kind of when our 70 days is up. So it varies from person to person, if people are off and stuff like that. And then for that, you have like a placement portfolio, which you basically have to fill out, and we're about halfway through. And then the third year, you do a 100-day placement. So your entire third year, you're basically on placement 4 days a week. So as you kind of progress through the course, it goes from more like essays to just you're actually going out and being a student social worker. So that's basically how my course goes. But I think the main thing is just being prepared in advance, because they can take a while, and from someone who has had to rush them at some points, they're not to be rushed.
Excellent, thank you. That's really cool. Frankie, and finally on to you. So what sort of assessments, I'll say as well, what sort of assessments you've done, but also how often do you have your assessments?
So on my course, we have like a complete range of different assessments. So we do reports, we do like statistics, we have essays, presentations, we've done a vlog, we've done posters. We like, honestly, everything is completely different. But so in first year, I didn't have, so I had pretty much one essay for each module. So it was about 4 essays, or like a presentation or report or something like that, per module, per semester. So it was about 8 a year, which wasn't too bad because they kind of really spread it out. Compared to now, I've got like 2 or 3 per module. Obviously, they're smaller and they all kind of amount to the same size. But yeah, it's definitely like all spread out over the semester. So for like research methods, for example, I have one every week, but they're only like 10% worth. So you do like kind of like a quick study on something, work it out, and then send it, and then that gets put into like a big portfolio. So yeah, it really ranges, but they try and spread them out as much as possible, basically.
Excellent, thank you. That's really cool. That makes a lot of sense, and hopefully that also, as I said at the start of this slide, alleviates some of the pressures people worry about. Oh my God, what am I going to have? How many a week? Are they going to chuck loads at me? It's all very controlled. It's all very measured. It's all very prepared for. As people have said, it's all about step by step and stage by stage. So yeah, don't panic too much. No one will throw you in the deep end with assessments. So brings us nicely onto the support that's on offer. As you can see on the board, the kind of list of things that we have is a whole multitude, and everything from the academic skills, from preparing an essay to writing bibliographies, how to reference, all the way through to some of the more support, mental, emotional health, well-being, that sort of side of things as well. And also, quite importantly, student money, how to budget, how to help with finances and bits and pieces as well. I don't know whether anyone has had experience of accessing any of these supports, and whether they wanted to share a little something.
I know that I'm kind of like in the process, like at the moment, speaking with student money, and they're really good. They're like really helpful. They have like a hotline that goes straight to student finance. So if you're struggling to like get through to them, their door's kind of like always open, or you literally just send them a message and they're like, we'll fit you in at this time. They like look at your timetable and they're like, oh, we see that you have a break for an hour here. Do you want to pop in then? So they seem really good, and they're really helpful and want kind of like to help you as much as possible.
Excellent, thanks, Frankie. That's really helpful. Anyone else? That's cool, thank you. So as I say, all these services are on offer, and as Frankie has said, it's really easy to access them. You can either contact them directly, or with some of them you can pop into our support and information zone, which is kind of the main reception counter of campus, and also book a lot of our services. And obviously it goes without saying, all of these services are confidential to kind of the highest amount. So you do get that alongside it. So don't be afraid to reach out and access support, especially when you're starting university and some of those situations are a bit more stressful, a bit more daunting, and a bit more unsure. So yeah, do chat to those around you. Leading on to our final slide, which is always quite nice to hear, is what would you say to someone considering studying a chartered sociology and social work course? And I will come to Grace first this time, as I feel like I've put her in the middle of a lot of the chat.
I'd probably just say, for someone studying a social work course, it's quite a good course because it's actually like a really, really small cohort. Like, we have about 20 people in it, so it's really good if you need any sort of like support, or if you need, like, for instance, for me, I ask a lot of questions, So it's nice to be able to ask questions and not worry about not getting something, because the lecturers are always really on hand to help you with everything. And the good thing about my course as well is even though you do kind of qualify as a social worker at the end, once you've done all the regulation stuff, you don't actually have to go into social work. Like, you can kind of do kind of other jobs. I just think it's a really good degree to have, even if you're maybe not going to go into the specific social work sector, which is part of the reason that I chose it.
Excellent, thanks, Grace. That's really cool. Taryn, I'll come to you next. So what would you say to a student considering studying childhood?
I would say the same as like the social work. My course is very small. I think there's about 17, 18 of us. So you get to know everyone, but also the lecturers, which makes it very like less intimidating. But they get to know you personally. So if you struggle with something, it's a lot easier to go to them because there's less people. But also a lot of people automatically assume, oh, you can either work in a nursery or be a teacher. With childhood, that's just like what people assume are just the two outcomes, but there's actually quite a lot. Like the lecturers, some of them are play therapists, things like that. So you get to know a lot of the different options, and there are different pathways to go with it. At the end, it's not just you have to work in a nursery when you're done.
Excellent, thank you, Taryn. That's really cool. Yeah, and it is really important, like you say, to work your way through the course and understand all those different pathways as they start to become apparent. And finally, Frankie, what would you say to someone considering studying sociology and or criminology?
Yeah, to be fair, like, I absolutely love my course. Like the other two said, it is very small, but obviously it's a lot more personalised, and we get sent emails sometimes being like, oh, we're thinking of changing this module. What would you guys think? Did you want to potentially do this one, or do you want to change it to this? So you can really personalise like what you kind of do. And it's also good in terms of a lot of our assessments. You can choose what you want to kind of delve into and what you want to like study further. So that's really good. And it also opens up a lot of avenues. So when I started, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I've done like a few modules in like marketing, and I'm like, oh, I really like that. I've done a lot of like criminology modules, some more like sociological modules in terms of like teaching, things like that. So it does open a lot of doors, and there's obviously a lot of placements you can do on there as well that kind of will help guide you in terms of what you want to do after uni.
Excellent, thanks, Frankie. That's really useful. That's really good to know. And finally, there are kind of some places you can come to for kind of contact if you've got any questions. Before we finish with our students, I will give you those. So we've got outreach@chi.ac.uk. You can send in your questions there, and also study here at chi.ac.uk. And you will also find that you have probably been sent links and information if you're an offer holder about our Campus Connect group. And that's a really new group to get to know people, start to make those connections, meet people either on similar courses, but also those with similar interests, and start to make some of those connections, start to make some of those make those links before you actually get to us in September, so you'll know people. And there's been some really amazing activity on those groups already, and people starting to organise kind of meetups and all sorts before they start with this, which is really nice to see. So one final question for our lovely students here, and I will come to Frankie first. So can you sum up your time so far at Chichester?
Oh, that's a good one. I've absolutely loved it. I think it's given me so many opportunities that like I wouldn't have had had I gone to potentially like a bigger university where there's like a lot more people I'm almost like competing against. So I've run in like the university elections. I've run for president for like a society. I've done a bit of like marketing. I've done like the podcast. There's just like so many opportunities I've had that I've absolutely loved, and it definitely has guided me and kind of shaped me in terms of what I want to do after uni.
Excellent, thank you.
Sorry?
Grace, do you want to go next with what you would say about your time so far at university?
Yeah, it's been really good. Like, I've met a lot of new people. I've obviously discovered a sport that I really like. My course has been great. I've also, because I'm quite kind of fortunate to have gone on a placement and be on a placement right now, I've even got experience of like putting what I know into practice. but no, definitely like really good. Just meeting new people and kind of discovering new places as well has just been really nice.
Excellent, thank you. And finally, Taryn, what would you say about your time so far at university?
It's been like, it's great. I absolutely love it. I think especially because Chichester's not a small university, but a bit smaller, it's helped me grow in confidence a lot. It's just made me like do things that when I started uni I definitely wouldn't have done. And I feel much more confident like asking like questions in lectures or like answering things just because it feels much more personal. So it's just definitely a great uni, great for me.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you so much. Thank you, Taryn. Thank you, Grace. And thank you, Frankie, for being really honest and sharing some really personal things, which hopefully for those of you who are listening will really help you settle and hopefully alleviate some of those fears before you get to university. And we look forward to seeing you join us in September. So thanks for listening today. That's brilliant.